I was young, 5 to 7, somewhere in there. I was sleeping in between my parents for whatever reason. I woke up. I remember the clock reading around 4 a.m. There was something standing by the window, looking out into the front yard. It looked like a man in a brown wool robe, about 6 feet 4 inches or so. I started to stir and sat up in bed, and the thing turned and looked at me. Dear God, that face. Extremely pale white skin, lots of really pronounced wrinkles, and the face drooped like it was melting down into a really pointy chin, almost similar to a scream mask but with all of the features of a living being. Its mouth was hanging open and its eyes were wide, almost like it was worried or frightened. It kept its gaze on me while it moved away from the window, in front of the bed, and out the open bedroom door. The second it exited the room, the lights turned on their own and both of my parents jumped up on either side of me, breathing heavily like they'd both just woken up from a nightmare. To be clear, I was fully able to move during this. I don't think it was sleep paralysis, but I'm not sure what it could have been other than some kind of demon or really fucking ugly ghost. I've never seen it since, but I can still picture it clear as day.
When I was a child, my grandparents' house always creeped me out. I was terrified of the basement, and there was something off about the rest of the house. Once when I was 10, my mom and I were sleeping in my grandpa's bed. I couldn't sleep, and I was facing the middle of the bed, so the back of my head was near the space between the bed and the wall window. All of a sudden, I feel something poke the back of my head twice. I was petrified and froze, so I never turned my head to see what was poking me. To this day, I don't know what could have happened, but I can still feel those pokes.
It was late-ish at night, and I heard a car crash outside my house. For some reason, I had a gut feeling of who it was and told my parents, and I was right. It was a friend of the family that I had only met once years and years ago, and did not even live close to us. I have no idea if it was something more than being just the hugest coincidence in the world.
From 5 to 6 years old, I would see a shadow figure, perfect human woman shape, walk the walls in the night, back and forth. It really creeped me out that I would just put the covers over my head. I was an only child and my parents were in their bedroom. It was when I was still wide awake way before I got sleepy. So creepy.
I was out at our cabin in the remote mountainous wilderness of Colorado with my dad, and had to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. This necessitated a flashlight and shoes because the outhouse was far away. There was no one but me and my dad for miles in any direction, so I thought. I suddenly heard voices in the distance and stopped in my tracks. It seemed to be coming from my right, deep in the woods in the middle of nowhere, a quarter of a mile from the road. Being 11 and unafraid of the world, I foolishly yelled, "Who's out there?" There was silence for a few seconds, then a shouted string of profanity so vulgar it terrified my virgin ears. I stood stock still for a moment like a terrified rabbit, but heard nothing else, so I ran back to the house and woke my dad up. He got up, loaded his gun, and turned all the lights on, but we never heard another sound. To this day, we have not seen or heard another person within 15 miles of the cabin.
I was young, maybe 8. Just so you know, I always go to sleep in my bed and I'd never, ever fall asleep on the couch. My grandpa died and we got back from his funeral. That night I went to bed, in my room as usual, but I woke up in the middle of the night on the living room couch. When I looked up, I saw my grandpa's ghost. It wasn't scary or anything, at the time it felt natural. He didn't say anything, but there was this understanding between us. I went back to my room and went back to sleep. I would have assumed it was a dream, but it was so vivid and real that it stuck with me for years, especially since I woke up on the couch, which made the moment stick out even more in my mind. It wasn't even a I saw a ghost. Moment. It was just a weird vivid memory that seemed so normal at the time that I didn't think anything strange of it. When I was about 20, I told my mom that story and she said, "Was it the day of his funeral?" Because I saw his ghost that night too.
I was about 6 years old at the time, and we were at an old cemetery where my mom was trying to find an old grave of a relative. She couldn't remember where the gravestone was and was standing still on looking around. While she was standing there, I suddenly felt compelled to run off in a certain direction. I kept running among the headstones until the feeling to stop came over me. I came to a stop in front of a headstone and looked at it to find that it was the headstone of the person my mom was looking for.
So a friend of my family is very wealthy, and has a big house that we all affectionately call the castle. Now it's no mansion, but from my low state of living it seemed like it. Somewhere between 6 to 8 rooms, a pool, 2 living rooms, giant basement filled with a flat screen and pool tables and all that. My friend and I would always crash in the basement when we stayed over. Now it was close to Halloween time, so we just finished watching a scary movie and were called upstairs for dinner. I had just finished taking a particularly nasty dump, so I closed the bathroom door and ate like usual. When we came back down to the basement, the bathroom door was open. Because it was so close to Halloween, we got all spooked and ran upstairs telling my mom. We closed the door, and it's open. So spooky, I know, but her response was, "Oh, that's just Beacom," and told us his story. Beacom is the house owner's brother's imaginary friend from when they were kids. They made sure to emphasize that it was friendly, but whenever something moves, or doors open or close, they just blame Beacom and laugh it off. So my friend and I went back downstairs terrified, and for the rest of the night we kept watch on the doors to see if anything was different, but sure enough, if ever we both left the basement, when we came back one of the 3 downstairs doors was opened. We got into the habit of closing them all. My mom tried to scare us once with a wolf mask, which was more funny than anything. But anyway, as we going to sleep, there are 2 half windows. I say half because they are small and let outside, while we are underground, if that makes sense, and 2 couches. I lay on one and my friend lays on the other one, and from the way we're laying we could each see one of the windows. And on my window is a white face. It's very dark and hard to see, but it looks like 3 black holes on a white field that might just happen to make a face. But when I get up to look closer it moves away, almost like it's more of a reflection of light than anything else. I deliberately didn't tell my friend about it because we had had enough fear for one day. So 2 years or so later, we are all talking about the scariest things that had ever happened to us, and of course Beacom gets brought into the situation. I'm listening to my friend tell the story and he ends with, "Yeah, that night scared the shit out of me. I never told you this, but when we were sleeping I saw this super creepy white face looking at me through the window. But we could only see different windows. I lost my shit, and was never more creeped out. It's been some time since we've been to the castle, but that story will always spook me."